right. You gotta. How we doing, guys?
Good, Coach.
Since it's the first time we've had a chance to talk since the blue-white, what players kind of stood out to you and that you thought did a good job in that?
I thought it was a pretty balanced day. Offense won some, defense won some. Certain periods, the offense scored a few touchdowns. Certain periods, the defense shut everybody down. I thought the plays the guys made on the ball were big. Xavier Woods. Trying to think who else. Donovan Wilson made a play on the ball, a big strip I thought was a big play. I thought in the third group they did a good job, offensively did a good job driving the ball down the field. 40 did a nice job on that last run. It really was back and forth, and to be honest with you, it seems like it was 2 months ago. So it was a good day. We're way far off as a team. We're not even close. I thought there were some flashes on both sides of the ball in the kicking game. I thought there were flashes in each of the three units, but we're not even close. And so hopefully opportunity to clean some things up yesterday and last night, and just back to work today. So important 3-day stretch for us right now.
You know you're not close. Where are you?
Yeah, we just know we're not close. The consistency that you need with players, with units, throughout practice, young guys, how we communicate. We're just a long way off, and I don't think it's unique to 6 real practices into training camp. I think that's where teams are. But the blue-white scrimmage is always a good barometer to see where guys are, see how guys handle it. It's not a game. We understand that. It's very situational. But you do get a glimpse just to check in 10 days into it to see where we are. So, again, incumbent upon us to clean it up as coaches and come back here the next 3 days and really take the next step as a football team.
Over time, have you come to view differently how much preseason game action players need to be really ready to play week 1?
You'll have to check, the whole history of it. I know years and years and years ago, I would say the starters probably played a little bit more, but I would argue that not that much. Typically it's you ease guys into it in week 1, they get a little more in week 2, and they play their most in week 3, and then you dial the starters back in week 4. And it's a great opportunity to give those guys a chance to start to get ready for the regular season in game action. It varies by position. Some positions need maybe a little bit less work, some need more. But it's also a great opportunity to evaluate young players and see where they are. It's one thing to do it out here. It's a whole other thing to do it with your uniform on against another NFL team in game-like situations. So that's a big piece of it. You're trying to get individual guys ready, your team ready to play, but you're also evaluating a lot of players on your team.
What's been the biggest difference in Armstrong from last year to this year?
I just think continued growth. He's come in and been a real determined guy right from the start. You love his spirit, you love his attitude, you love his work ethic, and he's a sneaky good rusher. He doesn't overwhelm you with physical traits like, wow, he's the quickest guy I've ever seen, he's the fastest guy I've ever seen. But technically he's pretty good. He has a good little pass rush repertoire. We saw that in college, we saw that last year. But again, like with all these guys, the more they play, the more they go against NFL players, if they approach it the right way, they're going to improve. And he's certainly done that. He's approached it the right way, very hard worker, wants to get better every day. I think you're starting to see that on the field.
Will Cooper do anything this afternoon, or do you?
Hopefully he can do something.
Christian Covington, a defensive tackle, and Hyder, veterans you brought in. Can you talk about the camp they have and what are you looking for them?
I think both those guys are off to really good starts, and both those guys have demonstrated what we thought they were. Really hard-playing guys who just play tough. They're physically tough. They're mentally tough. They play with a great spirit and a great motor, and they're capable of making plays. Again, they don't overwhelm you physically. It's not like, wow, look at this guy. But they're certainly capable physically, and they demonstrate it play after play after play. I think they're learning how we want to play on the defensive line, and I don't think it's a reach for them. I think that's kind of in their DNA. And, we're finding out more and more about them, but each of those guys has shown up really day after day.
More of a nose tackle type with Antoine Woods. You talk about that rotation with those two guys. Then.
Yeah, it's a good competition there. You know, Covington's played a lot of football in this league. Antoine had a really good year for us last year, and it's just fun to see those guys battle. Antoine showed up in the scrimmage the other day, penetrated, made some plays in the backfield, and as did Covington. So Hyder's a little bit more. He has more versatility. We've seen him at end. We've seen him inside. So there's a lot to like about him as well.
Spring in the OTAs minicamp, we saw you rotate White and Cooper rush with the twos. Since we've been down here, that's not been the case. Any reason why?
I don't know that we haven't done it, and we are going to continue to try to do it. You know, the twos and the threes, the way we structure practice, get almost the same amount of reps. So we don't think it's that big of a deal, but also we do want to get Mike in there and just to kind of see where he is, working with the other unit. We have snuck Cooper in there a little bit with the ones at times, so it's the same kind of a thing. But a competition's on. It certainly is, you know, at all positions, and at that backup spot, it'll be fun to see these guys play out over preseason.
What matters most to those guys, the games or what they're doing out every day out here?
Yeah, I really think everything matters. You just want to see how they handle themselves, really at every position, but particularly that position. Meetings, walkthrough, practice, all that stuff matters. Certainly physical ability matters, but at that position, so much of it's about decision making, your impact on other people. When you go in the game, does the ball move? Do you score points? That matters. Quarterbacks have done a lot of different ways through the years in the NFL. So, you know, those things are important, and those guys will get plenty of reps over the course of the preseason.
You guys
Talk
move.
about with those your backup quarterbacks, just playing is it so important to them? The more they see, are you seeing a progression with those two guys from the offseason workouts as you've gotten to here with the more reps they've gotten from?
Meaning, have they gotten better? Yeah, absolutely. There's no question they've made progress, and you know, John Kitten has done a great job with them. You know, fundamentally working on some things for each of those guys to improve, and I think they're getting comfortable with what we're doing with Kellen and just that whole group. It's a good atmosphere and a good environment for those guys to improve, and then they get plenty of snaps out here, and you find out about them. Again, we try to be equitable with the reps for all the guys in the early part of training camp. 4-4-2 on a 10-play set. We have the blue period at the end of practice, so those guys get plenty of snaps, and it's so valuable for all the young players. And you have to be ready to take advantage of them, physically ready, mentally ready, and emotionally ready. And that's part of playing that position too.
You guys moved on from Rico Gathers. What did he just level off? Was it not getting better? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, really appreciate Rico since he's been here. Obviously, that was one of those draft picks where you say, okay, we understand the risk and reward here. You know, it was a 6th-round pick, a guy who hadn't played football in a number of years. Very good basketball player, very good rebounder. There was some things to like about him physically, and he worked hard. But I think at the end of the day, his inexperience ultimately was the issue with him. It was hard for him to play the way you need to play in and play out, play with the instincts necessary, the temperament necessary to play. So into year 4 now, and ultimately he didn't show the growth that we wanted. And maybe if he goes somewhere else, he'll learn from this experience and take advantage of it. But I just felt like that was the best for our team.
Not specific to Rico necessarily, but with all players, I guess. How do you as a staff juggle that conversation between this is his potential, but this is the reality, and when you come to those types of decisions?
Yeah, ultimately players are at different places coming out of school. Some guys are more advanced, they're more polished, their transition's going to be easier. Some players don't have quite the physical traits that you want, and they might be advanced and polished. And then you say, okay, these guys are going to get to this point, but they're not going to get any better. They don't have the physical traits to do that. This is any position. And then there are some guys who aren't polished and don't really know how to play the game yet. Their transition is going to be longer, but they have an upside. And you're constantly building your team by blending those 3 kinds of players. Obviously, the cornerstone players, the guys that have all the physical traits, have the production, know how to play, can transition smoothly. We have a lot of those kinds of guys on our team. But we have some other guys who have all the intangible qualities, maybe not enough. We'll find out if they do have enough. And then you have these other guys who have more potential. And at some point you say, okay, potential's great, but you have to see the production. And you try to give guys plenty of time. You try to put them in different environments where they can improve, and ultimately you have to make the right decision for your team.
Do you need a tight end, considering how you guys rotate?
Yeah, we do. We do. We're looking at tight ends right now. We worked out a couple last week, so hopefully we'll get a couple more in here and find someone we can add to our team.
Jason, I know you addressed the Elliott situation with the team early on. It's almost 2 weeks in now. Do you readdress that at some point? I mean,
We've been pretty locked in on what we need to do out here as coaches and players and building our football team. And again, Zeke's been a really impactful player for our team over the last 3 years, and we trust him as a guy and we trust him as a player. And hopefully, as he's getting his business squared away, he's working out and understanding the importance of being in shape and ready to go when he does come back.
I don't think I saw Darius Jackson take a rep out there this morning. Is there anything going on with him? Is he okay?
Yeah, he's doing fine. Just a competition at the running back spot. So only so many reps in practice, and different guys will get different opportunities as we go.
What's the biggest difference between John Kidna as a QB coach this year and Kellen Moore last year?
I really don't like to compare guys like that, to be honest with you. Both those guys have had a big impact on our team. Obviously, we thought a lot of the job that Kellen did. We gave him the opportunity to be the offensive coordinator. And, Kit's been a guy who, when he played for us, towards the end of his career, played really well. And beyond what he did on the field, just had a really big impact on our team. And he was someone that we were trying to find a way to get into our organization for a few years, and finally it worked out well for us. And very good high school coach. He's a football guy through and through. Played a long time in the NFL. Did well as a high school coach, and we just feel like it's a good fit. Kellen and John are a good fit, and John and Dak and Kellen, they're a good fit. So it's been a really good thing for our team.
Is there a benefit for Cooper and Mike, the fact that Kidna has seen everything? Kellen was in this role. You've been in those roles. What's the benefit of those guys living what you guys live?
Well, I think it's a good environment for a quarterback, because each of us has been in each of those spots at some point in some way, shape, or form. So hopefully you can provide a perspective to not only a young player, but maybe a veteran player, and hopefully that can help them. Ultimately, that's what you're trying to do with players. You're trying to help them become the best version of themselves. And I do think when you come from the same perspective, that can be helpful to them. All right. Good to see you guys.